Welcome to our latest Graham and Sibbald podcast episode. Today we are joined by Kirstie MacKenzie, Emily Bullock, Fallon, Bennett and Salma Hathbul, who all work within the Asset Services Department at Graham and Sibbald, ranging from assistant facilities managers, from a graduate to a director, and we'll be speaking to them from across the UK today. Hi everyone, thanks for being part of the podcast today. As there are a few of us on the pod today, could you please all start by introducing yourself and telling us a bit about your role within GNS? Kirstie, let's start with you.
So I'm Kirstie. I'm based in the Glasgow office. I'm a student surveyor in the Asset Services team, soon to be a graduate in a few months, and I've been with GNS for 2.5 years now.
Amazing, go you. Emily, do you want to go next?
So I have been working with GNS for two months, I think. No, not even that, a month and a half. I'm based in the Swindon and Bristol offices. I'm an associate, but I've been doing property management for 13 years.
Oh my gosh, 2 months in and they've already gotten you on the podcast. You're brave.
Yeah, I know. Baptism of fire.
Yeah. And what about you, Fallon?
So I've been with GNS for nearly 5 years, 5 years in May. So graduate surveyor, I started in the Glasgow office. I moved to the London office in May of 23. So GNS put me through my master's. So that's me working towards getting chartered now.
Amazing. Last but not least, Salma.
I'm perhaps the dragon of the team. I've been chartered for a couple of years now. I'm coming up to almost 10 years, having previously worked as a lawyer, commercial lawyer. So it's been an interesting transition into the world of surveying. So I'm one of the directors for Graham and Sibbald and oversee the London and South East region in terms of growing our asset management team and really driving up the value for our clients and our tenants occupiers.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Salma. So obviously on the pod today, we're here to talk about International Women's Day within asset services. And I think there's definitely a stereotype that surveying is like a very male occupation. So I was wondering if some of you might share kind of how you got into the industry and what got you into it in the first place.
Yeah, so for me, surveying when I was younger, it was not ever something I thought about. As you said, it's quite a male-dominated industry, so it's not the first thing that comes to mind as a young girl, oh, I'll become a surveyor. So I did my undergraduate degree in human resource management, and it was after university that I got a job in residential property management, just an assistant, and I absolutely loved it. Got promoted, was a manager. I was there for 7 years, and I just wanted to further my career and get more qualified in the industry. So that's when I made the slightly scary decision at this age to go back to university.
Amazing.
Did my master's degree. Well, I'm still doing my master's degree in real estate, nearly finished. And at that time, was really fortunate that got offered the job at GNS as well, and I am loving it. So I wish I'd done this sooner if I'd known.
Yeah, brilliant. That's great. And what about you, Emily? Do you have anything to add?
I started out in Resi 13 years ago. I started at the very bottom, so I was an administrator handing out keys and answering the phones, and I just took a very keen interest in it, and over the years decided that I wanted to go in a slightly different direction, so move away from Resi and into commercial. And yeah, just over 2 years I've been doing commercial now.
Brilliant. I think as a woman in the workplace, it's fair to say that sometimes we come up against kind of issues that men just wouldn't, to be honest. So have you guys faced any barriers in your career? And if so, how have you overcome them?
That's an interesting question. I think as female surveyors, we face barriers all the time, and to just become part and parcel of the job. I'll tell you a funny story. I mean, very recently, I remember going out to do a survey, it's a measurement survey for evaluation with a graduate who was a male colleague. And we got there, we did the job, we finished it. The client was very happy, called the office to express his gratitude with the then senior partner at the office and said, for the sake of this, let's call the male surveyor Anthony, and said, oh, Anthony and his assistants were fantastic. Only for the partner to say, no, it was Salma and her assistant, which is quite embarrassing to the client, but it just goes to show that even in this day and age where, there's equal rights, equal opportunities for employment, there's still that stigma in many people's minds that if you are a surveyor, they expect a man to knock on the door to do the job. So I think that's something that we just constantly have to overcome and not get absorbed into that, and just do the job to a better ability, and by that we're just demonstrating that we can do it as well as our male colleagues, sometimes even better, I can argue.
Yeah, I'm sure. I spoke to some other women from another department, and they were like, men are just so surprised that when I'm not like a 6-year-old man in a suit turning up to do the survey, which is quite interesting. Fallon, was there anything that you would like to add on that?
So it's funny, I've had similar situations. It's maybe even just being on the phone to like a supplier, and they ask what your role is, and they go to finish your sentence. So like, oh, admin. No, surveyor. Yeah. So that kind of assumption, or even just going to site, and I've emailed saying, oh, I'm coming to site and doing a survey. And when I show up and say, oh, Fallon, I'd emailed, and they're like, oh, we thought you were going to be a man, which is so funny. So it's funny when I'm on site and we can all have a laugh, but it is this constant thing that happens. And I guess you can kind of say you're used to it. But I want to say something different purely just because Salma obviously touched on that. But I think for us as surveyors, our role is very sociable, whether it's networking, CPD, whatever it is. And I do feel like those events can be quite male orientated. So it could be like golf events, like rugby or whatever. I would love to go to a rugby game. That's fine. But when it comes to golf, I can't play golf. It was never really a thing when I was younger. So I remember saying before to a contractor, and I was like, oh, we can't really join in the golf. We can't do that. And he's like, oh, we'll get you a spa day. I'm like, I don't want a spa day. I want to try golf. So it's one of those things that because it's such a social job, when there's events like that we can't really take part in fully, or there's events, not every single event, but there is a majority where it's very steered against the males. So it'd be good if there was, people could open their eyes a bit and think, okay, how can we make this more inclusive? So that was like one that kind of came to me initially.
It is also a barrier to your guys' like progression as well, because obviously like I'm assuming like a lot of like business and stuff gets done like on the golf course and like at rugby events and stuff like that.
Like you said, it's quite progressive. So but I think over time people's mindsets will change. It is just a kind of longish process. But we are like, even in our firm, we're seeing such a change in the amount of women in here. So like even our team alone, we've got so many women, which is amazing to see. So it's a long process, but it is happening.
Has there been any advice that you've been given along the way that's really stuck with you?
Just not to be afraid to take risks. It's kind of gone with how I've changed from residential, went back to university, and also just to never stop learning as well. Like I'm always striving to do better, learn more, and just achieve the best for me. And I think that's just don't be afraid to do what you want to do. Take the risk. It'll work out, and it has for me. So
picking up on Kirstie's point, I'm the same, Kirstie. I've always been very driven, like wanted to continue learning, and do my master's was like perfect doing it at GNS. So it's one of those things, I think, quite hungry when it comes to my career. And when I remember when I first started, I was kind of like, oh, that kind of imposter syndrome, you're a woman, it's heavily male dominated and stuff like that. And it's one of those things that stop doubting yourself. Because my dad always told me, he was like, you get into your head a bit sometimes, and it's one of those things you just have to, it's over time, it's a personal thing, but you let it go. And as Emily touched on as well, it's just like your performance says it all. So actions speak louder than words. So once you kind of show your ability, that's a slow process. You make a name for yourself in your firm, but it all comes over time. That's one thing. It's just like remain hungry, keep learning, and the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, lovely. Some really nice insights there. So the theme this year for International Women's Day is to inspire inclusion. Is there anyone that inspires you in your career? What about you, Kirstie?
So I'm really fortunate actually to be surrounded by a lot of like really successful women, but my stepmom in particular is just really inspiring to me. Throughout my whole life as I've known her, she's excelled in her career. Like she holds a really senior position in quite a male-dominated industry, And I just admire how hardworking she is. But even going further than that, past her career, she actually had cancer 6 years ago and she's got the all clear now, so she's fine. But she continues to maintain this career as well as being an advocate for all these charities and raising awareness. And she just puts out this really positive message, like, you can do anything, like, do not give up, whatever life throws at you, I'm gonna do this. And I just think that's
Yeah, oh
amazing.
my gosh, so
I
inspiring.
don't know whether I can have some input here, but I think we can all agree, and even Emily just joining so recently, but Claire, who's the partner of one of the partners of Asset Services, we all look up to her so much. She's a very intelligent woman, very driven, very concise, like she just great manager. And I feel like we all talk about it and we all are on the same page about that. So if we're talking about the workplace, and someone drives us, that she is one of those people.
Any woman who is juggling a really successful career, and the challenges that comes with family life and the modern way of living, and being able to be at the top of their game is really inspiring, because it takes a different skill set to be able to remain calm, remain articulate in face when you're facing adversity, when you're facing everyone telling you that, oh, it's not possible, you can't do it, and no one giving you a solution to scenarios sometimes. It's really inspiring to just have a level-headed leader who can see beyond that and who can say to you, do you know what? Yes, we can do it. Let's keep our heads down, get on with the task in hand, don't give up. And you prove everybody wrong that it is achievable. So I think, that's a fantastic inspiration from Claire in that respect.
Nice. Shout out to Claire. We all love her. We've spoken about being a male-dominated industry, like the social side can be balanced towards men, or clients are surprised that women are even surveyors in the first place. What are your main hopes for the future of gender diversity in the industry?
So when I thought about this question, my head went straight to when I was at school, and went to school in Glasgow. It was kind of be a lawyer, be a doctor. That was the kind of only thing that was on our agenda. I went to uni, I did law. And when I came out of that, I was like, okay, I did well, but do I want to do this for the rest of my life? No. And that's when I got into property. I started in facilities management and then eventually went into property management within GNS. But I think from the outset, just going to schools, making young women aware of the property industry, the built environment. It's not just a case of, because when you tell someone you're a surveyor, like quantity surveyor, no, there's so much more out there. It's very vast. There's so much opportunity for you out there. There will be something that you like, and it just gives them another option. So I think just from the outset, go to schools, building up awareness about property, GNS, whatever it is, and that way, just from the ground up.
It's interesting, isn't it? I do think, like, obviously it's mental anyway that at age 18 you have to figure out what you want to do, but I do think it's definitely a women thing, where there's just so many careers that were never kind of sold to be for us. Salma, did you have anything to add?
Again, I just think not shying away in what we do, because I think sometimes as women surveyors, the only way to change this industry is to say we are women surveyors. We're here, we're in the industry, we're making changes. We're leading some of the big companies, we're leading some of the big projects. And I think just raising awareness of that, not just in schools, but in every single opportunity. I take on board what my colleagues have said regarding social events being more male geared. And I think sometimes I have attended the rugby events just on the sideline for the presence of, we're female surveyors, we're here. And it's just being present, being present at every single opportunity, whether it's a client meeting, whether it's a social event, whether it's attending a podcast like this, but just keep reiterating that, we're here and we're changing the industry.
Yeah, no, being present is great advice. So we'll finish with a fun one, which is what we've been doing across our International Women pods. So if you guys could have dinner with 3 inspirational women, dead or alive, who would they be and why? Kirstie, let's start with you,
Oh,
please.
God. So I really struggled with this one. I was like, who am I going to pick?
Yeah,
well,
there's too
I
many
don't
to
really
pick
know.
from.
Like, so I thought about it. So Karen Brady, I would quite like to have dinner with, just because she's so successful in business. I'd love to have a chat with her. These are maybe a wee bit obscure, this one, but there's a CrossFitter called Tia Claire Toomey, and I just love like the dedication, determination, and drive she's got. I'd just like to speak to her. And then maybe more of just a fun one, Dolly Parton. I just love Dolly Parton. I think she's dead talented and really hardworking. I think that would be a very interesting dinner, a very eclectic mix. But yeah,
It would. Yeah, I mean, Dolly's an absolute icon. So
I know. Yeah.
count me in. Emily?
I chose Kamala Harris because she was obviously the first female vice president in the US, and watching her go through the elections and all of that after already being a lawyer and a senator, I thought that was amazing. So, groundbreaking, quite literally. Also, Kenya King. So she founded the MOBO Awards, and she actually used to be one of the residents at one of my buildings, and she's just got such a strong feminine energy about her, and watching her drive in things that she did, I always found her a pleasure to work with, but it was great watching what she did as well, business wise. And funnily enough, Greta Thunberg, this Swedish girl who advocates for environmental issues, just because she's very headstrong.
No, definitely. And I also love that she takes on like people like Donald Trump on Twitter. It's always pretty entertaining, to be honest. Salma, who are you picking?
So again, I struggled with this one. Not struggled because I couldn't find any women, but I struggled as to, are you limiting us to just two people? There's so many.
Three people, to be fair.
Three people. Well, myself, right, including myself.
Oh, yeah, fine. We'll allow it.
I think top of my list in this modern world, it has to be for me, Malala Yousafzai. And she's basically the Afghan girl who basically was shot by the Taliban for wanting to go to school. And I think just inspiring in the sense that she hasn't resorted to violence and she's changing the world. I think I read her biography. She said she's changing the world or changing the perception of women with a pen and a paper. And I would like to sit down with her just to find out what it's like to survive a bullet shot to start with.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I've also read her biography, and it's just like so young when everything happened, and she's still really young, and she's just so
she's still very
articulate
young
and impressive. Yeah, she's incredible. You've got one more, I think.
One more. I think the other one that I thought was probably Alice Fletcher. So Alice Fletcher was the first land surveyor, and I think her nickname was the Measuring Woman because all she did was measure land. And again, talk about, turning up for a job when somebody expecting a man. And I think she was the first female surveyor. So I would like, again, just to see what barriers she faced and how she overcome them and what motivated her to do the job in a definitely 100% male-dominated industry at the time.
Okay, I think that concludes another one of our International Women's Day podcasts. Thank you so much, guys. I really loved that and thought it was like really insightful. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, ladies.
Thanks again to Kirstie, Emily, Fallon and Salma for all of their insight and time on the podcast today. For more information and to view the full range of services offered by the Graham and Sibbald Asset Services team, please visit our website at www.g-s.co.uk. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, you can catch up on all our latest podcast episodes via the playlist on our YouTube channel. See you there.